My name is Sam Lark. I'm one of the directors of Leicester Startups Community Interest Company. And about 8 years ago, I came across a local entrepreneur who'd read Brad Fell's Startup Communities book and was inspired to start something in Leicester. So it began with a few casual meetups, and now we achieved and deliver a range of activities. So we had funding that was delivered through Leicester University. I was working there until September. We've opened a co-working space at Phoenix Yard. We obviously deliver accelerator programs. We have a weekly help desk. We've got a help engine, which is where our mentors live. We produce podcasts. We've got and thousands of followers on social media. So lots of activities designed to support the local startup ecosystem. And we're committed to doing this all free of charge, thanks to funding, particularly from the LEP and donations. And if you want to learn anything more about us, you can find our details on leicesterstartups.com. So this is our third accelerator program, and we've built on the lessons and the insights from the first two. And you can see the demo days of those on our YouTube channel. I'm really genuinely, and I've said this in the previous two, and I mean this again for the third one, the level of commitment and engagement for all of the participants has been outstanding. And if you like what you see today and you think you're working on an innovative, scalable startup, our next accelerator starts on I think it's Jan the 17th, but you can find the details on our website. The closing date for that, though, is mid-December, so you've still got a couple of weeks to get your application in. So who do I need to thank? Loads of people, way too many to mention. Obviously, the Leicestershire Enterprise Partnership, who are funding this current accelerator program. And then lots and lots of individuals through our help engine. I mean, folks like Jim Shields, Eric Perry, Rajinder Bowie, David Chan, just way too many. Lewis Stringer from the British Business Bank. And of course, our judges. And I'll come on to more of those in just a moment. So the format and housekeeping, we've got 6 startups that are pitching. We had a selection process today, so not all of them made it through, but we have got 6. Each of them will have 5 minutes, followed by 5 minutes of feedback only from the judges, please. Look, we don't really have time for clarification questions. The session is being recorded, so if I can ask everyone to turn their cameras off and microphones, please. And feel free to use the chat if you want to share any ideas, thoughts, or feedback for the participants. So yeah, oh, and incidentally, we have a startup weekend taking place on Friday. So if you are at an earlier stage and are still thinking about what your business could look like, then that could be for you. And you can find details on our website page. So yeah, just a really big, genuine thanks to all the people that have been on this journey for the past 8 years, the LEP and the British Business Bank, who's kindly also supported this program as well. So that's enough from me. I'm going to hand over and just get the judges to do a quick intro, if that's all right. Elliot, would you mind going first? Just a minute or two about all the wonderful things you've done in the startup world, please.
Of course, thanks, Sam. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having us. I've been fortunate enough to have been a tech founder of 5 ventures over the last decade at this point. It began from my hometown in Newcastle, where 10 years ago it was not a very big startup ecosystem whatsoever. Founded my first company there, raised some small rounds of venture, and progressed to London. Ultimately ended up selling that venture within the first year of operating. Took a few more swings for some companies that were a little bit less successful. You win some, you lose some, such as startup life. And then ultimately ended up founding a company in 2016 that took us from London to Boulder, Colorado, where we participated in the Techstars Accelerator program. Techstars Boulder, of course, being the original Techstars program. And that was an incredible experience with the founders of Techstars, including Brad Feld himself, being our mentors on the program. We ended up being headquartered out in Los Angeles after raising some money from a number of venture investors, including Sequoia out on the West Coast. And then were acquired by a company out in San Francisco, which I then joined as their head of marketing and drove them towards an acquisition by Logitech for just shy of 150 million, I think it was. So not a bad exit for the founders and investors there. And then I've since come back to the Leicester startup ecosystem to try and channel some of that US venture ecosystem here, and excited to see the pictures today.
Thank you, and great to have you in Leicester. And we're joined by Jim, who is from the local area, but you're at the States at the moment, Jim?
Yes, I'm out in Philadelphia today. I'm first trip to the US after a couple of years, thanks to Mr. Trump. But I'm out seeing my team and doing a bit of a tour, really, getting around everybody, getting around my new parent company, which is, well, they're not new now, I guess they're a couple of years old now. Yeah, catching up with everybody face to face for the first time in a long time, which is important. And yeah, so those of you that don't know me, I've been working with Leicester Startups for quite a while with Sam and Ben and the gang. I tend to try to represent the creative community. So if anyone has, I mean, it really applies to almost any small business, but basically the questions are the same. But I wrote a couple of books about creativity and how small businesses can train their clients and try and make sure that they're mindful of their trajectory, especially when working with big corporations. That's my area of expertise. So if you're looking for the chance to attach a pipe to the side of a corporation and suck money out, I am your guy.
Interesting, Jim. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And we're also joined by Sharon Rye, who's a corporate partner, I think, at NatWest Bank. Is that right, Sharon?
Hi there. Yes, I'm currently heading up diversity and inclusion for commercial bank at NatWest, but I ran an accelerator for NatWest for a couple of years. My background is economic development and international trade, but I've mentored and coached hundreds of entrepreneurs. I've run an accelerator as part of a national program for NatWest. Have some fantastic entrepreneurs that I work with. They are my favorite people and the best community to be in and be around. So I'm really looking forward to hearing the pitches today. And as always, happy to help and support in any way I can post this session today. But thank you for having me.
No problems. Anuj, you volunteered to go second, so can we switch to you, please?
Yeah, sure. Let me just share my screen. So I'm Anuj, and university life is dying. I'm Anuj Asher, the founder of APay. My entrepreneurial journey began at university. Every day I met students who were struggling to keep up with their financials and were desperate for solutions. This led me to expanding my background in fintech and financial services. This year, working with Innovate UK, I created the startup Rounds to provide payment infrastructures for rural communities in South Africa. Rounds gained global recognition and actually won a £10,000 grant award. From this, I was named as one of the top 3 global young innovators of 2021. So of the hundreds of students I've met and we've spoken to, 80% would consider themselves financially illiterate and not having the correct access to the right information. We're also seeing students lending money out to friends and not receiving it back. With 66% embarrassed to ask for money back and another 80% experiencing social awkwardness, we often see them falling into traps and going out of pocket. Imagine a world where students didn't have to worry about financial difficulties. They didn't have to say no to ordering a pizza every now and then. They could focus on their studies and they could be themselves. So introducing APay. Using open banking technology, we're at the forefront of developments in financial access. Our tech works in such a way where we can see where a student has spent money and then generate automated payment requests, thus cutting out the need to ask for the money back and the social financial awkwardness. As we're keeping the payment side of the app completely free, our revenue streams come from a combination of financial literacy sponsors, student data, and partnerships with communities. So through financial literacy, we set out specific and tailored information throughout a student's university life. So when they sign up to the app, they'll be able to select their interests and year of graduation. Using our algorithms, we then start putting out tailored advice to them and assisting with the next stage of their studies. For example, a first-year student might want to learn more about finding affordable housing. whereas like a final year student would be more interested in setting up a business or how to start paying off a loan, etc. So in terms of what we've done, well, since launching, we've conducted over 9 major iterations and really narrowed down on a final public product. AppTap and Tuck have signed letters of intent to start hosting financial literacy, which includes blog content every month. We're using this inspiration to onboard even more partners and are currently in discussions with Santander. When combined with our expanding mailing list, we've got a clear vision for the opportunity size. So in terms of our addressable market, with the number of students up by 11% this year, the student fintech sector is on course to continue its rise. Currently sitting at 5.4 million potential UK users and 250 million worldwide, the number of students is not expected to slow down, and therefore neither will our potential users. When combined with the $6 billion UK fintech sector, which is currently growing at 23.4% per annum, APE is well positioned to take on the market. So fintech company valuations are exploding. Cash App and Revolut increased their valuation by over 500% in just the last year. However, their focus is on P2P payments and the ability to split bills to the wider public. So we compare this to Facebook for the general population and Snapchat to the millennials, where over 90% of the users are in that 18 to 24-year-old age bracket. So this is where APE fits in. We plan on adopting that Snapchat model where over 90% of our users will be in that age bracket of 18 to 24. This in turn helps to drive our features of social engagement and financial literacy, whilst really providing a platform that's millennial targeted. Our USP comes from the fact that we are student targeted and are student led, whilst adopting the Snapchat model really sets us apart within the fintech industry. Then to further our advancements, we're working with our mentors and advisors, and they're all supporting us along the way and providing resources whenever we need them. It's also worth mentioning that none of these individuals own any shares or IP within the company. So looking at our roadmap, our MVP is complete. We're currently well underway with finalizing the front-end app and having the full UI in place ready for public use. When we launch, we'll introduce only the financial literacy and sharing aspects of the app. Then due to a combination of grant funds and some early stage seed funding, we'll have the ability to start integrating our open banking capabilities. We're currently searching for an investment of 70K, which will allow us to start our open banking focus. Discussions are currently in place with providers, and funding would allow us to accelerate this in time for a 2022 academic year launch. We're also asking for introductions to some key individuals. So if anyone in the audience is interested, we'll be more than happy to speak with you. And thank you for listening. I'd love to answer any questions.
Well done. Well done. It's your time to breathe, relax. So, no particular order. Jim, you're at the top of my screen. Could I get you just to spend a minute and a half-ish, thoughts, feedback for Anuj, please?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so nice job on the presentation, Anuj.
Thank you.
Great job. I felt that there were just a couple of woolly bits that I wanted to clarify. The funding sources, you rattle through a list of 3 things, and they felt a little vague to me. Just could you recap the funding sources that you talked about?
So we don't actually have any specific funding sources at the moment. We're currently looking at grants, and then are looking to bring on a strategic investor at some point in the near future.
Okay, just wanted to be clear where we were in the process. That's great. Okay. And how would you crystallize? So again, the introduction was great. And I think from my experience of students, yeah, the tracking finances is probably the last thing on their mind. How would you crystallize the problem to be solved then? Is it general education? Is it tracking? What is the main focus of your business, of the app?
I mean, we basically, from our interviews, we see that students, they don't know what to do with their monies and they actively want to. The problem is that they don't have the resources to be able to do this. And we're there to provide them.
Right, so they don't have the resources to what? Look at their bank statement or?
To manage their money in an efficient process, which helps them track who owes them money and who they owe money to.
Okay, so that's okay, that's one thing of it. I get that completely, and especially in this country, we struggle to ask people for money back, especially when it's small amounts, and we feel like we're being petty or whatever it might be. So there's a slightly psychological thing to this as well, isn't there? I totally relate to the idea of being phased by getting organized. As somebody who suffers from ADHD, I absolutely get that. I guess really I'm trying to think of a way to encapsulate the other facets of this as well, like financial education. Obviously taking the pain away of tracking things is great, but actually, you know, building a broader educational platform is the tracking of personal loans with friends. That's not the only aspect of this business plan, is it?
No, absolutely not. So we don't actually generate any revenue yet from the payment side of the app. So we're working with our brand sponsors and the people that really want to target that student niche. And that's kind of where we get our revenue from.
And so where's your friction at the moment then? What in terms of this, where you are in the process? Where is the friction for you? Is it just meeting people, or is it how would you know, what are the problems to overcome right now?
One problem that we're facing is the open banking side. I've started a fintech company in the past, but I haven't really gone into the open banking route fully yet. So a few connections within that industry would be massively beneficial.
Sure. Okay. So we've got a good idea in search of some patronage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And would you say the name you've got for it at the moment, APay, is that your final offer on the name, or is it a work in progress?
I've never been asked that, to be honest, before.
Because I'm the creative guy, that's why.
Yeah. I mean, our branding is focused around that name, and it kind of flowed with our customers and the user interviews that we did. We don't have any plans to change it, but it's not something that we're 100% against if it proves it works out better.
Well, yeah, just it's worth bearing. I mean, it's a bit early yet to talk about design, but it is worth having don't do the design internally. Always get somebody who knows what they're doing. That's only just a bit of soft advice there. Okay, well that's all I have at the moment. But
thanks, Jim.
Yeah, it was really crystallizing the offer and the problem to be solved. Just work on that, because that will get you through the door. So your first, it's a bit like stand-up comedy. If you don't make somebody laugh within the first 30 seconds, they start to worry about you. So,
yeah. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
No worries.
Sharon, any suggestions, pointers, contacts?
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, really did enjoy that presentation. It was good. So thank you for that. Couple of really, and I am conscious of time. I know we have 6 presentations, so I'll keep it short and sharp. First thing is, I'd love to connect with you and connect you in with the NatWest Innovation team. The other thing is, I know that financial education is something that as a bank we're looking at quite a bit. Particularly, we do already have a product called MoneySense, so I would absolutely recommend looking at things like MoneySense. They may potentially be a competitor, but equally it could be a really good partner for you. And on your competitor side, I know you talked about the other financial apps and solutions and things, but actually there may, you know, if you're going down the route of financial education, you may want to broaden that out. The questions that I had for you, a couple, and you don't have to answer them now, so just think about them and mull on them, because I don't need an answer, right? But it's just worth thinking about. The first thing is around the content. So if the financial education is happening through partners and the partners are responsible for content, that kind of answers that question. But how do you ensure that the content is even being consumed, it's the most up to date, it's the most recent? Who takes ownership of that side of things? You know, if it's going to be a really useful tool, then the content needs to be really hot off the press and engaging. So how do you do that piece? The other side of it is when you get to the payments piece of, let's say, so I have a son at university right now, and he lends money to his friends, and he uses the app, and he says, right, well, I don't want to ask him to pay me back, or I don't want to ask her to pay me back, so I'll do it through the app. What difference does that make? how do we know that they're even going to get the payment back? Because we're kind of making this assumption that there's a bit of a cultural and it's a very British thing to not ask to be paid back. And it's quite embarrassing. So I completely understand the social awkwardness, but if it's done through an app, have you tested what that would do? Because with any startup, we don't want to ask people what they will do. We want to ask people what they've done and base solutions on habit, because it's very difficult to change habit. We can all say, oh yeah, absolutely, I would do that if I had it, but there's no guarantees of that. So there's a couple of pointers that I think would be really worthwhile ironing out. But I'm gonna park it there if that's okay, and allow for Elliot to step into.
Elliot, thanks, Sharon. Thank you.
And I'll just drop this on you and leave you with it to take away mull over. Great presentation. Congrats, man. Appreciate you starting with the early focus on your achievements. I think you've done a rock star job to date in your career, given how young you are, and leading with that makes complete sense. Financial literacy feels like such a hot topic right now. So, I'm passionate about this area. As a Splitwise user, I personally experienced the use case and can understand the idea of a new entrant focused on this younger market segment. I understand that the amount in fintech on this slide is big, but obviously Monzo and Revolut are fully fledged financial services platforms, and so it would have been interesting to have a corollary for your particular revenue streams around sponsorship and data specifically to try to draw a comparison from. Obviously, consumer apps, a huge part of that is customer acquisition. Would have liked to have seen maybe a bit focus on how you're going to acquire users, given that it's such a big deal in consumer apps. And then if this is a fundraising deck, would love to see a bit of a breakdown on what the raise amount will be spent on. That's it. Good job, man.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Right, well done. So next up, we've got ExamApp and Aaron.
My name is Aaron Panisar, and I'm the founder of ExamApp. ExamApp is an innovative new e-learning platform suitable for all secondary school students. The ExamApp platform is based on my research in education, which I conducted at the University of Oxford. The platform currently consists of hundreds of rigorous e-learning tutorials on every topic on the curriculum for GCSE mathematics and GCSE science. So that would be physics, chemistry, and biology. ExamApp is also used by adult learners, those with learning difficulties, and also individuals with disabilities. The platform has hundreds and thousands of fun and interactive quiz questions so that students can check their understanding. The results are saved automatically, so students, parents, and teachers can track progress with ease. The platform also provides access to hundreds of past examination papers so students can practice their examination technique. The research that my peers and I carried out taught us that there are numerous problems with effective knowledge assimilation within the British schooling system. These problems can be linked to a variety of issues, such as a lack of competent teaching, ineffective teaching methodology, and a lack of student concentration. And the coronavirus pandemic has simply amplified all of these issues and highlighted that students suffer from gaps in their knowledge due to medical absences or homeschooling. One particularly sad fact is that around the world, there are millions of children who simply cannot access quality education. Now, there are some e-learning platforms already on the market. However, our research taught us that there are still many problems with the main e-learning providers, including a lack of depth and rigorousness, complicated and confusing platform navigation, or they're just simply not very stimulating or engaging or interactive. Furthermore, some are rather expensive and have priced themselves out of the reach of many households and schools. So what makes the ExamApp platform more effective than what is already out there? Well, the tutorials are more rigorous and comprehensive. The platform is simple and intuitive to navigate, and progress can be tracked easily and effectively by both the students and the teaching staff. Furthermore, the ExamApp platform can be accessed by most types of mobile and desktop devices, including PCs, laptops, tablets, and smartphones. The ExamApp platform consists of e-learning tutorials which contain colorful illustrations, animated scientific diagrams, and it is also compatible with algebraic notation. The platform also provides users with direct access to hundreds of past examination papers. Here we can see a variety of quiz formats which are interactive, such as multiple choice questions, drag and drop, fill in the blanks, all of which can be varied in order to keep students stimulated whilst learning. Let's now have a look at the business model. So ExamApp has a subscription as a service business model. The platform has already been built to be scalable and can handle excessive traffic effectively. ExamApp has two main routes to market. The first route would be direct to consumer, whereby individual students pay a set price per year. Another route to market would be business to business, whereby a school would buy thousands of subscriptions in bulk. We believe that there would be a higher retention rate too, due to automatic yearly renewals, which users can easily opt out of should they wish to. And schools tend to become dependent on certain platforms once teachers have built it into their teaching structures and have become dependent on the platforms year after year. Taking into consideration that nearly every young person in the country takes GCSE examinations, the target market is very sizable. There are around 600,000 school students in each year, which is over 3 million secondary school students that could be using ExamApp. And there are around 4,200 secondary schools in the UK that we could potentially be selling bulk subscription packages to. ExamApp was trialed on over 150 students during its beta phase. It was made available to the public earlier this year, just before the summer. And since then, schools have really taken notice of the platform. ExamApp is currently being piloted in more than 70 schools around the country. Here you can see a selection of just a few of them. We also have a waiting list of schools who are looking to implement ExamApp. Currently, we're looking at over 100 schools on that waiting list. So let's talk about the future of ExamApp and further growth. Well, ExamApp has the potential to bootstrap into the future. The scalable SaaS model is very lean at the moment, and almost all of the revenue can be reinvested into the development of the company. However, any investment would certainly accelerate growth. This would most likely go into marketing strategies and further development of the platform. So that investment would allow us to take on developers for the IT side of the platform, academic researchers for the curriculum content, and also relationship managers for sales and marketing. Some of the further developments that we are considering would be additional GCSE subjects, advancement into primary, A-level and university education, advancement into foreign educational systems such as the American SATs, and also industry e-learning and training such as health and safety, compliance, legal, regulatory, and so on. One of ExamApp's main objectives is to make a positive impact in society. We believe that providing access to quality education to young people around the world is a noble endeavor. You give people access to education, and that gives them the ability to go on and make changes as well in the world, have a positive impact. As such, we're collaborating with schools and charities in order to support students from deprived backgrounds. Thank you for taking time out to hear about ExamApp. I certainly welcome any questions. Anybody who has any links to schools or local authorities or children's charities, I'd particularly be interested in speaking to you.
Well done, Aaron. Your turn to relax. Let's switch the order back again. Jim, could I ask you to go first? We are a little bit behind on time. I don't want to feel like Aaron's losing out, but yeah, just thoughts, comments, any connections, usual stuff. Thanks.
Keep it short. I've made my living recently by selling to a platform who does education as software as a service for cybersecurity in companies. Taking a very dull subject and making it interesting is what we do. And so just one comment is, early on in your presentation, you made a comparison between the SaaS model and the traditional, pay once, buy the software. I'm worried about that having credibility because actually I don't know anyone who does that model anymore. Even Adobe, you can't buy Photoshop as software anymore. Everything is subscription. So just be a little bit careful about, I know schools and education traditionally are a little bit behind the curve with, contemporary business models, but just be aware that I worry that might dent your credibility a little bit if you're using a comparison with a model that is so outdated that really nobody does it. And it is quite a competitive market. I'd love to know what the experience is in using that platform as a dad to two teenagers. Oh my Lord. Yeah. I started helping them with homework and they're both brighter than I am. So it's really, that would have been very useful. But the quiz thing is approved, tried and tested. It can even be gamified and it can be competitive between siblings and that kind of thing. It can be a lot of fun. So I'm all about what you're doing. And I think the only thing is content generation has a cost. So I would be interested to hear where you're getting your content from and how you're keeping that up to date, because obviously curriculums change. So just being mindful of the upkeep costs of that. It does have a cost, even if it's your time. And the engaging with the educational institutions, a lot of them purchase through a framework, a local government framework. So just be mindful of allowing time and expertise to get your engagement with that world. I'm sure you've already thought about this, but it's just, you know, obviously you can't just knock on a door. You have to be, sometimes you have to be part of a purchasing framework, and that can take up a lot of admin time. So those are my 3 points of advice on that one. But I like the idea, and as I say, as a dad, yeah, bring it on, please.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Really useful. Sharon, next, please.
Thank you, Aaron. I really like this solution, and yeah, I got very excited about it. But COVID has, like with many organisations, kind of turbocharged digitization of whatever that industry is, and that's definitely true for schools, where, you know, some schools are using Google Classrooms, and BBC Bitesize stepped up their work and things like that. I think what would be really good in the presentation to see is more of that wider industry piece. So you have talked about, you know, the competition, but actually education technology is really vastly growing. So comparing yourself to some of those competitors, even if they're early stage, would be really useful. But the other thing is as well, understanding where you're finding barriers. So what's the challenge? What's the bit that you would want your audience to support you on? Because everything was so positive and fantastic, and I think that's great. You're absolutely, you know, in the right place, but it's not real life if there isn't some kind of blocker or some kind of challenge or something that you're asking for. So I'd love to hear, and it may be that we don't have time and it's one to pick up later, but you know, you've got to provide that balance, especially if you're talking to investors, because if you just paint a rosy picture, that as time goes by, they just get more and more cynical. It's like, well, you know, if everything's going so great, why do you need us? I get the need for investment to turbocharge development, but there's got to be more to it than that. And that just shows that you're considering the full landscape. Like an entrepreneur that can say, here's where we see challenges, here's our opportunities, gives an investor peace of mind, because it means that you're aware of your kind of, you know, blind side, if you like, type of thing.
Sure. I think at the moment, a couple of hurdles that we're coming across, if schools currently have subscriptions to other e-learning providers, even if they like that one, but they have said to us, look, that ends in September, so we're going to look at putting you in September. At the moment, because the waiting list is quite long, it's just a case of us getting our skates on. And I know also it was mentioned about content development and all that kind of stuff. The curriculum only changes like once every 20 years or so. So once you cover the entire curriculum, actually it's there for a good couple of decades, hopefully. But yeah, your points have been taken on, and I'll definitely address those in future pitches as well.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Thanks, Sharon.
Thanks, Sharon. And Elliot, of course, next, please.
Aaron, congrats, man. I thought the presentation was abundantly clear what the problem was, what the solution was. So even though it might be a Windows 95 presentation, you hit the important stuff. One little point on that, I would in typical presentation narrative begin with the problem, a big brain harpoon to say here's the problem, and then launch in with the solution, rather than solution and then saying what it's actually solving, just as a narrative thing. Yeah, currently piloted in 70 schools. Congratulations, man. That is insane levels of traction, and gives a great deal of credibility. Would love to, perhaps it's a little early for that, but would love to see some of that begin to feed through in terms of screenshots of emails or feedback, or, you know, whatever is the mechanism of positive feedback that's coming through. Let's showcase all of that in the presentation. That's going to be absolute gold. I find myself, when consuming this presentation, and I'm just a data point one, of course, feeling like my biggest intuition, is that it's a highly competitive area, and that simply saying that the existing solutions are boring and not colorful enough, and I know it was more than that, isn't sufficient. I would love to see really why is this thing going to enter what I would instinctively think is a hyper competitive market and win? Perhaps its product, if it is truly a product differentiation, some side-by-side breakdowns, or some very, very clear way of spelling that out during the presentation. There was no team slide. I guess it's not a fundraising deck, so it's not, it doesn't need to be there, but certainly if you're going to fundraise, we'd love to see some non-execs in the area, some advisors from this industry. And in terms of connecting you with people, I did connect you with my friend Jeremy, who's building something similar out in the States. If you need me to reignite that, I'm more than happy to.
Thanks, Elliot. That was really one of the best introductions, and he really understood the kind of journey that we're on. But there's no competitiveness and no overlap, because we don't appeal to the same audience. Can I just say, and before we move on, Sam, Elliot, the point you raised about the competitors, that's really, really common. My previous business was education and tuition centres. We tried all of the other apps and they weren't good. So we were our own first customer with this. It's just a lot more rigorous. And when you think back to school, sometimes some of the teachers that you remember, it wasn't necessarily the one who had the best classroom or anything like that. You learnt the most when you really got on with the teaching style. This is just a lot more rigorous. And the reason for that is because I think a lot of the other apps were developed by programmers and full stack developers, not necessarily academics, not the people who really understood the material. This is taking the best of the material and then tying it in with a solid app as well. I believe that's why it's really getting some traction with schools.
I believe you, man. I believe you. I would take it as a data point of one, but perhaps labour that in the presentation, given how instinctual it feels to flag that.
Cheers, your advice is always taken on board. I will definitely implement that, mate.
Congrats, man.
Well done, Aaron. Your turn to take a breather and relax. So we've got half an hour left and we've got 3 pitches, which is ideal. So it's 10 minutes for each one. And I'm going to pick on John next, please.
So good evening. My name is John Hartland and I'm pitching App My Map. So what's the problem that we're solving here? In the UK, there are many outdoor events, venues and attractions. Now, how do people find their way around these? Often not very well, using a combination of information boards and bits of folded up paper. Now, this reduces the visitor's user experience, it isn't sustainable, and it can also lead to reduced revenue for organisers and owners. So our solution is an easy to use app creator that allows venue and event organisers to effectively generate a branded interactive app for their attraction based on existing paper guides. It's low cost, easily accessible to those with limited resources, and it's very easy to configure the data. So let's walk through an example. A local village fete. You're given a paper map with some information on it, but that's about it. Now let's imagine that this app's been loaded into the app. All the visitor needs to do is to scan a QR code at the entrance to the event or on the ticket, and that loads into their data into the app. The map's geo-referenced, so you can find your way around. The visitors can tap on the app to see what's interactive. They can tap on Joe's Cafe and they can see his menu and a link to his website. Which cafe are you going to go and eat at? You've forgotten that there's a burger shack at stall number 11. So Joe wins because he gets more customers. The organizer wins because they get a better user experience for their visitors, and they could charge extra per interactive pitch, which gives them a return on the investment in the app. The visitor wins because they get a more interactive, informative experience. We get paid to facilitate it. Everybody wins. So how does this look from the perspective of the organizer? Well, starting with a map with information panels on it, a common format for a paper guide, they load this file into the app. Then they select the map area and geo-reference it. Then they decide where they want some buttons, give them titles, and select which area of the paper guide this relates to. They can optionally have a URL for further information. You can add as many buttons as you want, and then you upload all of this data onto the internet. It gets packaged up on a website, and that can be accessed via a QR code, which downloads the data back into the app. Simple. So where do we fit in with regard to the competition? Well, there are information boards, which are great if you've got a good memory. They're very easy to vandalize, and they're very expensive to replace. There are paper maps. which are portable, unlike the information board. They're not geo-referenced. And what happens when the information's out of date? You need a new map, a new printing run, and lots of recycling. Websites and web apps are great until you find that your security settings have blocked the browser's access to the GPS. And when that's happened, you then find out that you've lost your mobile signal. Dedicated apps are very good, offline, interactive, geo-referenced, but they can be very expensive, maybe £5,000 for an app. Our solution gives a good balance between interactive data, offline accessibility, location information at an accessible cost. So what evidence do we have that there's a demand for this? Well, we asked some non-biasing questions, and there were some recurring pain points from visitors. Missing toilets, opening times, getting there and parking, poorly marked paths, and on-site information. And a lot of these were actually echoed by the event and venue organisers we've spoken to as well. So the new animation catches up. So how big is the potential market for this? Well, potentially it's massive. Here are some of the headline statistics I mentioned briefly earlier, and these just scratch the surface by covering some of the large organisations. Don't forget that in addition, there are all the small parks, outdoor museums and galleries. Now, we believe that there is a significantly scalable, profitable business offering the customer the ability to configure an interactive content for generic events and venues app priced competitively with the current popular alternatives, that's information boards and paper maps. With the proposed pricing, which will significantly undercut the cost of a dedicated app, the total market could be worth over £5 million, and addressing just one subsegment will be worth over 150,000. So what inroads have we made into the market? We're testing a pre-configured app with 2 organisations, and we're in discussions with a national charity and following up on some other leads. So who are the team? Currently, it's myself and my wife, but between us, we've got over 50 years of experience in science and engineering research and project management and education. So we're here to raise £50,000 to cover further development of the iOS product, porting to Android, product marketing and operational costs, and to gain introductions to enable further customer development with event and venue organisers and get the product onto more visitors' phones. With your support, we can start working over the winter and take 2022 by storm. Thank you for your attention.
Well done, John. Thank you. Your turn to relax. And then switching the judges' order around again, could we start with Elliot, please?
John, congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Again, concise, simple presentation, but it does the job. Understand the problem, understand the solution. Yeah, jumping straight in comments. So I loved you walking through the example. I think that's so important for helping the audience understand the solution, which is so important for understanding the rest of the presentation. I was confused initially whether it was like for Disneyland or for SeaWorld or for somebody that had internal independent merchants, but it's a testament to how good it was that you walked through everything and spelled things out, that it course corrected me over the course of the presentation. Would have loved to have seen, you mentioned a number of different kinds of customers, would have loved to have seen like your beachhead market, who you consider to be the best customer right now, the lowest hanging fruit, and defining them. What size are they? What exactly does that look like? And then my biggest takeaway from this one would be the market size. 5 million as a total addressable market seems, unless I've misinterpreted those figures, seems very, very small. And, raising venture to pursue something, requires a market that's, at least billions. And so if this is a business that's, more of a lifestyle business, I suppose that's no issue whatsoever. But if this was a seed round, an A round, a B round, a venture scale business, I would expect that we'd need to attack a much larger market size than that. And so that's, unless I've misinterpreted that, but that's, yeah, a point that would be interested in addressing further.
It's probably being slightly pessimistic on our part, but that's based on the pricing we were suggesting. And just those major markets. So if you take into account all of the small players, then there's significantly more. So it's at least 5 million, and that's just in the UK. There are parks, venues, events all around the world. So probably we should look outside the boundaries of the little island, and also do a bit more counting of the smaller venues and events as well, which would probably give us a significantly larger market.
Yeah.
Or make it clear that that's actually, even that, by 5 million is only a small area of the market.
Right.
What one to think about anyway, John? Yeah, thoughts to take away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Elliot. Sharon, any suggestions, comments, possible connections?
Thanks, Sam. John, I really like the presentation, and actually when you first started out, I kind of sat really confused thinking, well, hang on, we've got Google Maps and that has like video functionality and everything else. Like, what are you bringing new, and how do you even compete with Google? But actually, just as Elliot said, as you went through the presentation, the penny dropped and I went, oh, okay, I get what you're doing. My biggest question and my biggest kind of guidance on this to you would be really to consider your route to market, because if you're going after, let's say, ad hoc events, so if I'm thinking about the city that I live in, we have a couple of, static venues that always are hosting things. Well, they're already using QR codes for visitors to go and interact with those events, and you have Slido and you have all this different functionality to make the events really interactive. So would they be your target audience? I'm not sure. If it's the ad hoc pop-up type fates that you described in your example, how do they even find you and know that you exist? Because they're generally organized by smaller kind of, pastoral teams and things like that. So it may not even be high on their radar. So your route to market, I think, needs to be really well thought out, and maybe look at some potential partners. So I know Eventbrite would be, a place that a lot of people, you organize an event, just do it on Eventbrite and you can do it for free. Maybe there's some partnership opportunities to look at. I totally get what you're trying to do. I think it's a really great idea. Definitely a great way to optimize the event, but that route to market is really important, because otherwise I foresee some quite high cost of acquisition around finding customers and things like that. But really love the presentation, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. And Jim, please.
Yeah, actually, strangely, my comments were around the same issues as Elliot and Sharon. I think you're suffering from the market being the Goldilocks paradigm, which is the idea that, some of the smaller events, how much hassle is it for them to engage with the data input process, and is it worth it to them? So are they too small? And then at the higher end, with bigger events or corporate events even, or big venues, there's already apps out there that they can afford to get and that do a relatively comprehensive job of what you've described from what I've experienced at these events. So, working out where the perfect, bowl of porridge is in the middle is quite important. It's vital, in fact. I'd need to know more about the process of engaging with the app to do it, because there just comes a point where people go, this is too much hassle, there's too much data to put in to make it useful. That was my only worry, is how hard is this? How much friction is there for me as an event organizer or a venue owner to get all my vendors in, to get all the other things into this app? I'm sure it's absolutely worth it as a customer experience, but it's a lot of time and hassle for somebody to do. So whoever's job that is, or that would be, just love them and make sure they understand that you're there for them. All right, that's all I would say really at this stage. But it's a great idea. I would love to have it.
Absolutely a great idea. There you go, Jim. There's my attempt at some comedy. Right. Who have we got next that hasn't been yet? So, Andrew, I'm going to pick on you next, please.
Okay. So our product is, our app is called TraceWaste. And what we've done is we've got a product that we've had for a while. But what I've learned in my time as a sales guy visiting manufacturers and organizations is that most of them don't understand or know anything about their waste streams at a granular level. They know the waste that they send to landfill, and they know the waste that goes to recycling, but they don't know much else about it. And we can change that, and we are changing that, and we have changed that. And one of the, I put there a snippet from a report a government did about 2 or 3 years ago, where they stated that the waste data is the power to transform behaviours. Well, we know that works because we've done that with some partners, which I'll touch on shortly. So what is TraceWaste? It provides a cost-effective method of learning more about waste streams, providing empirical data to make value-based decisions, allowing organisations to manage process changes and improvements in real time. And why would businesses use TraceWaste? Well, there's a massive push on environmental, social and governance objectives, and certainly around waste, we can help with that. We play a massive part in the global net zero effort, where we can help businesses reduce their waste by actually focusing on granular issues to improve those. And we're also driving the demand for a circular economy using real waste data. Let's move on. So how it helps, what we do is we actually capture who created it, what was created, where it was created, when it was created, and why it was created, plus a whole raft of other really tight granular information that some businesses use, certainly manufacturing processes. It's really important to them to know, line details, reasons why that waste was created. It's really important because it helps them identify trends and things like that. Right, so it's a simple to use solution. This is the home screen for the app on the shop floor. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we've got the sources. This is the line numbers, locations of packing, shift IDs, and this is all completely configurable for each user, or the client can configure them themselves. And we have a workflow here where we've actually selected it all to give you an idea what it looks like. But as they select each one of these options as they go down, it populates the next level down and then gives them the option to choose. So it doesn't actually give you all of the options that are just meaningless. It actually gives you a proper path through. And then that's saved, and this is an operation on the shop floor. This feeds back to a office-based application, currently using a Microsoft platform, where they can then build reports, save reports. We're working on dashboards at the moment, KPI monitors, but they can actually build their own reports, then save it for later dates. We have businesses where they actually are saving reports for different departments and even board meetings. The competition, so there's a company called Winnow, very well known in the hospitality sector, but they're pretty much focused on that and food waste. There's a couple of competitors in this sphere, which is Waitrон and AWM, and they're focused on hardware sales, and they have poor reporting just to Excel, and that's almost old hat these days. An SQL database driven application is far superior. It's because we give top class report building with drillable detail. Easy configurable, they can make changes on the fly, send them down to the shop floor, and they can start capturing new data within seconds. Large interactive displays for KPI dashboards for manufacturing. Multiple sites and multiple stations can all feed back to the cloud and be reported, working on a web app at the moment for this. What we're doing now is we're classifying the data using the European standard for waste classification. So we'll actually know true waste values, number of sites, and we own that data as well. It's on our servers. Current clients, big one there, PwC. They have this at all their 22 offices across the UK. They're a contract customer. They pay a revenue each year to us. And that was solely for an ESG objective, formerly called, they called it CSR product they needed to fulfill. They wanted to know what waste they created, and they now actually use it quite extensively. Pucker Pies use it for decreasing their waste. They have a board meeting, regular board meetings, where these waste reports form part of the board meeting, so they can actually lower their waste, which improves their bottom line. And the same goes for Long Clawson cheese. They also use this product extensively because they decided that a lot of the Stilton that you buy in the packs, the triangles, that gets into a crumb, and they turn it into pots at Christmas, and they sell it for a lot more than you would pay for a block of cheese. So it turns a waste product into a high value product for them. PwC said this about our products: the ability to report empirical data waste accurately on our CSR each year has helped us monitor and create realistic reduction targets for waste going to landfill. This would not have been possible without the TraceWaste system deployed at all of our offices. Pucker Pies had this to say: driving down the amount of waste we create adds to our bottom line, which our boardroom love. They've taken a keen interest in the numbers being reported from the TraceWaste system, and we're constantly creating new initiatives to deliver improvements. What we're looking for at the moment is around £250,000, and this will help us to develop the next level, which is TraceWaste version 2. This will be more of an app-based product, and we'll need to improve the user experience and also develop it into a SaaS product, because at the moment each installation takes time. The idea for that is to make it faster and easy to deploy on a global level. We also need to raise brand awareness through a variety of marketing exercises and trade exhibitions, and the funding will also support test and trial equipment that we can send out to our users. And that's it, guys.
Well done, Andrew.
Coughing in a second again.
That was bang on time as well. Thank you. Right, so yeah, over to I think it's Jim first, please, for comments, observations, potential connections.
Absolutely. Yeah, great presentation there, Andrew. I was going to ask the question, but you answered it within the presentation anyway, whether it's connected to any kind of ESG objectives or legislation, you know, with current focus on people reducing waste and other outcomes of that, like carbon footprint, for example. It's nice to see so many environmental approaches on this one call. Frankly, it's brilliant. It feels like it's you're quite a long way down the road in a way. Obviously, you need the funding, but my advice would be to leverage, and you already know this, to leverage the customers that you've got. Try and get them to put something down that you can use. They've already given you comments. I wondered if there's a case study that you've got for PwC, for example, where it becomes a PDF that is just such a lovely marketing item. It's not expensive to do, and you can.
My biggest weakness is marketing and self-promotion, unfortunately.
Often the case, really. I think, you know, getting in connection with a very small local agency can just help you with that. You can do the heavy lifting on your message. So what is the problem that we're solving? And as long as you focus on that, they'll be able to do the rest in terms of design. But, you know, you can piecemeal it like you would, you know, the same way you book a holiday these days. You'll get the hotel and the flight and the car, you know, just get a copywriter, a designer, and build your own little agency. And then they'll, you know, it's a lot cheaper than going to a bigger firm that gives you all that account management that sometimes you don't really need.
Well, I know I could lean on PwC, which has got a lot of weight behind them with what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And to spend some time with me and probably even get some videos of it being used. It's just, again, you know, it is really about the creatives, and like you said, engage with an agency, and they'll come to me with do this, do that, do this, and that's where
you need to organize it. You need a marketing strategy, basically. But I think it's a rock solid product. I don't know why. Are you aware of competition? I mean, I don't want to ask too many questions because we haven't got much time. But you know, obviously, you're a guy who's been out on the road, so you've met customers and you've been at the sharp end. So that's really helpful. I think that gives you a unique insight. I think being honest about what else is out there that does the job. If you really have, there's not a lot.
There's a massive gap. There's a couple of people doing on the food and hospitality, and they're doing really well. Right. And they're focused. Right. We're focusing on large corporates where they've got multiple sites. We want to effectively put a tablet on the wall, link it to a little scale via Bluetooth, and away they go. Send the data via SIM card. And
my bit of advice as somebody who deals with corporates a lot. Don't think of it as one point of contact. I know it probably teaching you to suck eggs as a salesperson. You already know this, but if you can build an asset that you can give to half a dozen people in an organization, that'll sell for you without you having to be there. And that is a 2-minute video. So that is my advice. Get together. If you want some advice on that, Andrew, I'm happy to talk to you on that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So we'll set up a call and I'll talk you through what that needs to be.
Thanks, Jim. Much appreciated.
No worries.
Sharon, would you mind going next, please?
Well, that has been consistent throughout, so I'll go second. Andrew, first of all, hope you feel better soon. And
Thank you.
secondly, what a brilliant solution. Really hats off. And you've got some credible clients there. So, you know, again, brilliant traction. I wouldn't be too quick to give away equity if you're talking to those kinds of businesses already. I'd, much like Jim said, find other ways to fund the growth. Because you've got past the hard bit first of getting some clients. One bit of feedback for the presentation.
Death by PowerPoint.
Well, it wasn't death. It was death by PowerPoint, but the reality is, you've made the mistake 101 of writing down everything on the presentation and then reading it line for line. I mean, come on, dude, you could do yourself so much more.
I know. Unfortunately, my mind, the track I have on my mind at the moment would I've got like ADHD, so I'd be like going off and
Okay.
I like struggle with that, really. But I need that at the side, and yeah, a script. Thank you. Yeah, I will take that one away, definitely.
That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give you a hard time over it. You know?
No. I do it to other people. I do it to other people. Our team. You know, other people outside, and you know, it is 101. Yeah, and I fall straight into that trap.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. You have such a brilliant solution, and you want to use every opportunity to sell it and really bring it to life. So yeah, just find doing it. And again, hats off to you, because you're doing something that's working.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Elliot, would you go next, please?
Andrew, feel better soon, brother. I respect you for persisting when you're unwell. Love that this is a solution that's just going to appeal to those corporate social responsibility initiatives, ESG. I mean, let's face it, we all have to pitch in to do our bit to get to net zero. And so solutions that help organizations do that are just going to become increasingly important. This is a complicated, fully fledged solution. I do find myself still trying to fully understand the depth and breadth of what it does and doesn't do. You know, does it track waste from paper that's put in a bin? Does it track waste that's like going out the toiletry system of the business? Is it the lights? And you don't need to answer those questions, but you did show a product demo. Given this isn't as simple as a consumer app, perhaps a little walkthrough, like here's Pucker Pies. Imagine you're Pucker Pies, you're on the production line and this happens, and so on and so forth. Here's some wastage, and just really very clearly spelled out exactly what the solution looks like. But there was certainly enough to be able to continue with the remainder of the presentation. I love the testimonials. How powerful are testimonials? Incredible. Would love to perhaps even see more than that. Like, how valuable is this to PwC? How much has it saved them? How any metrics around that could be gathered and shared would obviously go even further in letting that point land. Since
we've staggered the amount of waste these guys create. It's funny.
Yeah. Honestly, I can imagine you could hit us with some metrics that would stun us, and that would be really powerful to include. Since you're in market and this is a fundraising deck, I'd be expecting to see, some commercials, like your pipeline and prospects, your financials now, your projections, some economics, your customer acquisition cost, your lifetime value. Pardon me.
It's catching.
Yeah. And if you were still anticipating getting customers while you're doing the build for V2, I guess some projections. If you're stalling the build until V2, it'd be interesting to know when you're going to be back in market selling the solution. How long is it going to take to build V2? Do you have an agency? Do you have a quote? And then the team. There was no team slide again. Would love to see you.
Me. It's just right. To build one, and unfortunately, it's just me. And I thought, who else to put on that? No, I bootstrapped it with contractors. We own the IP and all that sort of thing, but I bootstrapped it with contractors, and it's been a product that's been around for 5 years. But a previous business partner that we just had no appetite to work on this product. We have another business as well, which is in weighing, which is where it came from. And I think the thing for me is the whole startup experience was to get to a point where I've got the makings of something to then to then start filing it back and honing it and getting it polished to take us to that that seed level where we actually get something in.
Well, you've got the makings of something. Congrats.
The total market for a waste solution for corporates is huge. PwC paid us approximately £180,000 for their solution, and an ongoing revenue of 25 grand a year. That's just one company in the UK.
Well done. I do have to move on, I'm afraid.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thank you very much. Anyway.
No, well done. Iqbal, would you mind going? So last but by no means least, please, if you could get your presentation up and get started straight away, thanks.
Yeah, hi, good evening, everyone. And I guess it's last but not the least, firstly, thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to be here. And thanks a lot to you guys, the startup guys, Sam and the entire team who's been behind. So I'll just quickly share my screen. So I'm the founder for Meets for All. So I'll start off with the problem statement, or I would say the market trend and the research that we did, and probably the gap in the market that we saw. So I think last year, 2020, was more of a, I would say, the year of change. Basically, we saw a massive increase in the online sales. So it's not only the marketplace, but we also saw a massive sales just on the grocery, or more than 70%. And plus we saw a massive increase even in the online sales of meat. And in total, we saw it was an increase in about more than 6 billion. And I would think the numbers which we took then was about 6 billion. Probably now it had been surpassed what numbers that you see on the screen. So over and above, we saw also a gap in the marketplace for providing or provisioning any kind of a local platform for the meat vendors, so digitally to connect with the meat lovers. So hence we came up with this concept of Meats for All, so which is a marketplace niche only to sell meat products with the local butchers and with the local communities. So who we are, so basically it's a unique platform. So we connect the meat lovers with the local butchers. So our main key goal is to provide convenience to the consumers. So as we've seen in the COVID times, it is it's very, very restricted, with long queues, maintaining social distance, etc. So over and above, it's always, you notice that you have parking nuisances, you have waiting times, etc. So to avoid all that, so we by having this app, how it basically works is pretty simple. So it's just 3 apps we've created. So one is for the customers, one is for the vendors, and one is for the drivers. See, the customer places the order, and in point 1, the vendor accepts the order, the payments done by the consumer or the customer, and the processing is done for the particular order in their required specification, and the order is delivered with at your convenience in your 4 preferred slots that you choose on the day if you place the order. Or we also have a feature that we can place orders in the future as well for 14 days. If you have a party in the future, or you've seen that the forecast of weather is nice, you want to do a barbecue, you still can place the order in the future as well. So so that's how the app basically is. We are live. We did a soft launch last week, so we had a few glitches with regards to the payment gateways. We are trying to get that fixed, and we have another launch date planned in a couple of days' time. So we are live. We are also on the Play Store, as well as the Google Play Store, as well as Apple Play Store. So this is just a look and feel of how the app looks like. This is the live customer app. So you can download it now as well, so you can place the orders. But the payment, basically, we're just trying to integrate and make sure that the Stripe gateway gets integrated, so that the payment goes straight to the vendors and the drivers. So that bit is what we're trying to plug in. So this is just to give you a feel of how the vendor application looks like. And this is pretty simple, where you have the vendor login, where you have the dashboard on the new orders, and then the inventory also can be managed for vendors. The vendors can control their inventory on the app itself, and they can place their promotions as well. So if they want to make a promotion, it's going to be sent out to the customers through an SMS, and So they get to know when the promotion is. They can, and also the vendor gets paid out as soon as he triggers this payout buttons, automatically it gets paid out weekly or monthly. So the delivery app is pretty simple. Has pretty standard. So you have a login with the OTP. You just accept the order. The driver can also call the vendor and also call the customer. And once they deliver, it's just an SMS sent to the customer as well as an email with an itemized bill. So the advantages for the vendor is they can create their own profile. They can maintain their dashboards. They have their online store. They can maintain their inventory. They can maintain their finances. We send them stats weekly and monthly as well to see the trend analysis of how they've done in each of their category of the products that they sell. And as I said, it's 3 simple steps for us to go for you to go ahead and order the meat. It's pretty simple. And what I'm looking for here basically is firstly, our target is to increase our customer base by 100 to 200 maximum in the next 3 months, and also to have at least 5 to 10 vendors in the next 6 to 12 months. So what I'm looking for basically is support from an advisory to form an advisory board to give us some strategic directions, and mainly to help us with an outreach and expand across the UK. So we may be looking at investments in the future in next 12 months, but at the moment we're not looking for investments. But I'm welcome to any suggestions or anything that I can hear from and the panelists. That's pretty much it from my end. So thank you. So you're all welcome to join us on Meets for All. So we are live, and that's it. Thank you.
Well done. Well done, Iqbal. Thank you. Thank you. And Sharon, I'm mindful of I keep cycling back between Jim and Elliot, leaving you in the middle. So would you mind going first with some feedback, please?
Iqbal, hi. Really nice looking app and a great product there, and always a champion of small businesses. So I can see that there's a really big gap in your presentation, and what I'm not seeing at all is the customer habits and things. So the first thing that came to mind was, how do you compete with Deliveroo or Uber Eats that now provide grocery deliveries? What about things like the bigger grocery stores where you can get same-day deliveries, Morrison's on Amazon, people that are doing their grocery shopping online? How do you compete with putting everything through your Tesco, Sainsbury's, Ocado, whatever apps versus, okay, but I'm going to buy my meat separately? I get the kind of, if you're going local, maybe you're getting better quality, maybe it's organic and things like that, but it's really hard to get traction in this area. And I think within your presentation, that's a massive chunk of work that's missing. So it's either been done and it feels like you've really focused in on the solution, and it almost feels like this is a butcher store that's gone, how do I find more customers, and how do I do that piece? But yeah, and again, very mindful of time, so it might be we don't have time to do it now, but something to adapt into your presentation for future is really talk about that customer traction piece.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Really useful feedback. Jim, next, please.
Actually, again, I had a very similar question to Sharon about existing services that are already doing this. Whenever you specialize, there's always the danger that you're introducing friction into a marketplace. And I suppose if there was a specialty benefits of some kind, like organic or niche markets, that kind of thing. But that's sort of slightly at odds with the local thing. So I'm a big fan of local apps that champion the local small businesses, because that's saving the high street to some extent. But I agree with Sharon. There is a gap, and it worries me about people having to do yet another thing to do a part of their shop. Convenience wins every time. That's the problem. So if you can convince me that you've got rid of the friction, and that enough people would lean in, is it the same sort of people that would have the guy that turns up with a van in the street for local fish, or whatever? Is it that sort of market? It's quite fragmented, so it does worry me a little bit, to be honest. But Iqbal, I think it's a great idea. I think the app looks amazing, because I suppose the temptation would be to expand the app to other things, but why just meat? Anyway, those are questions for another time. But I think the design part of it and the product looks fantastic. So I suppose you've got some marketing questions to answer.
Thanks, Jim. And Elliot, please.
Hey, Iqbal, it's not always easy going last, so congrats, man, to sit through all your presentations and then wrap up for us. It was interesting beginning with the trends. It really answered my assumptions that veganism and being vegetarian was on the rise. To see that the meat industry is still growing was like, oh, it immediately answered that concern. So nice job. Direct to consumer meat market. I mean, we've certainly seen it with independent grocers, and so I guess why not butchers in theory, but certainly agree with Sharon that I would really like to see the use case spelled out. Like, why is this consumer? What is the USP to them over the alternative options? Is it that it offers a broader selection of halal meat? Is it that they get better cuts from using this than the supermarket offers? I'm sure you have the answer to that question. It just needs to shine through in the presentation. Yeah. It seemed to me like you were building quite a lot by building both the marketplace itself and the delivery apps. I appreciate that Deliveroo is effectively doing that. They have the full infrastructure, but the marketplace of buying stuff for delivery from those places already existed. And so I was just wondering where you could lighten the load by using some sort of delivery partner, a Postmates, or if there's some infrastructure level version of that to forego having to build your own driver network at the same time as driving all of the marketplace. Because it seems like, a big job to acquire drivers alongside acquiring all of the customers for the marketplace as well.
Yeah, I'm exploring that, Elliot. So that's one area which I don't want to pick on. So I want to rather outsource that. Delivery is what I want to outsource. Just want to focus on the vendor base.
Yeah, I can imagine. Unfortunately, I don't. I do have a contact for you. It's not directly this industry, but he's someone who's building the last mile delivery network out in the US. He's just raised insane amounts of money, like hit 70 employees, very, very close friend. I will connect you with him. And yeah, it wasn't an investment deck, so I appreciate you can admit things like all of your customer acquisition strategies, although it would have been interesting to hear what your plans are in that area. And then the final thing I'll leave you with is you can do better than 5 to 10 vendors over the next 12 months, Iqbal. You can smash that thing.
Thank you.
Get on Google Maps. Get on the Google Maps API, write a little scraper to find all of the butchers, pull them all through and smash them all with some outreach, and you can have hundreds reached out to within a week. You can do it.
Thank you. That's very optimistic. Thank you.
Throwing down the gauntlet. There we go.
Thanks, Elliot.
Right. Genuine thanks to Sharon, Elliot, Jim, of course, all the 6 pitches and everyone else that helped them along the way, along the journey. Sorry we've run over. Managed to do it again, but a big thank you to everyone, and of course everyone that turned up this evening to watch. So I will sign off, run over time, but yeah, thanks everyone. See you again in February for our next demo day.